fathers envisioned. And that was a very important part of what weighed into my ultimate decision to acquit.
How do you handle that pressure? I mean, your name is etched in history, literally, with this. And you have tremendous pressure coming from both sides.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I never really, that was not one of the emotions or experiences that I had over the course of impeachment. And a lot of that is because I followed what they were doing in the House very closely. I did spend a lot of time reading a lot of the Federalist Papers and going back and really trying to understand what the intent was with impeachment. Having that woven into the arguments was very educational. I learned a lot during that impeachment process, but I can't say that over the course of it, up to and including the day of the vote to acquit, that I ever really experienced any real pressure. It was very clear to me how we needed to go through this process, and my decision at the end I'm very comfortable with.
It was a little over 5 years ago that you were sworn into the United States Senate. In those 5 years, give me a rating of the accomplishments. I know people don't want to rate themselves, but I'm asking you anyway. Do you give yourself an A, a B, B minus, C? The accomplishments of the United States Senate since you've been there with what you've wanted to accomplish?
Well, you know, I don't know if I'd apply a letter grade, but I would talk about a lot of things that I'm proud of. And a part of what I have enjoyed most is how some of the things that I did for North Carolina, I have been able to do for all of America. We think about tax cuts, something that we were very focused on when I was Speaker of the House, doing the tax cuts and seeing a direct and immediate reaction in terms of job growth, now record low unemployment among African Americans, women, Hispanics. To be able to get a second shot at criminal justice reform. When I was Speaker of the House, we did the Justice Reinvestment Act, which was really trying to get smart on rehabilitation, reducing recidivism, and then to go up there and serve on the Judiciary Committee, work to get criminal justice reform done, see that happen. Even something along eugenics. You know, we did the eugenics compensation when I was Speaker of the House. I was able to go up to the Senate because we found out that someone who may be entitled to some level of restitution could be subject to federal taxes, and to be able to get a bill in place to kind of finish what I started here. But, you know, I think the one thing I hope your viewers recognize is there's a lot of good things that happen every day. When I was on the Senate floor during a recess, during impeachment, I was down in the well talking to one of the House managers who's trying to remove the President of the United States. I'm sure the media and people watching from afar thought that we were talking about impeachment, but we were talking a bill that we were working on to help farmers. And in the back, when you'd see us talking, I'm talking with Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware, on intellectual property reform that we're working on. And a lot of those things, I could list a long list of things that have happened on a bipartisan basis. You can't get anything done in the Senate without bipartisan support, and I've got a long, long list of those things that I could talk about that at the end of the day I would say I scored pretty high in my first 5 years.
You know, I was watching just last night the second part of a docudrama on George Washington on the History Channel, and the cabinet was very small in that first administration. There were maybe 3 cabinet members, but they're there talking with the president. And the disagreements coming from your allies, in this case with the president, were incredible. So there's nothing new.
Nothing.
With being vehemently opposed to one another on one issue and coming together to work for the greater good for another. And that's hard in this day and age for a lot of people to grasp.
That's right, and that's why I really try to focus a lot of attention, and I do with younger groups. I said, they always ask me the question, when did it get this nasty in politics? I said a couple of 100 years ago. The difference is we have TV cameras, we have social media and other things that amplify our differences, and it has drowned out any reasonable continuing dialogue about all the areas that we get work done. And you see it through oversight. Veterans Affairs Committee, one of my favorite committees to be on. We almost virtually never have an ideological divide there. Maybe some things around the edges. Senate Armed Services is very similar. Judiciary, a little bit different. I serve on Judiciary Committee, but I think it's really, I hope that the folks out there who think that every day there is bad and that we never talk, I hope that they understand that that does happen. But for a handful of members of the U.S. Senate, there are great friendships and relationships. We understand where we can't agree, where the ideological divide is too great, but we can compartmentalize and find things that we can work on.
When we come back, Tom Tillis looks at what he hopes to accomplish in a second term. Welcome back. Hard to believe the primary is only a few days away now. So tonight we continue our conversation with Senator Tom Tillis, who is seeking the Republican nomination next Tuesday.
Well, what matters to me is both Cal Cunningham and Erica Smith have said that they would endorse whoever gets nominated by the Democratic Party for president. They've gotten out there in support of the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, a lot of what I consider to be empty promises they simply can't deliver on. They would destroy the economy. They could take health care away that you get on your job from 160 million Americans. At the end of the day, that's what this election is going to be about. Their liberal progressive agenda or one of limited government and historic growth.
Are you surprised in what you're seeing happen nationally with the Democrats now, with Bloomberg debating on the day we're taping this on this evening, him just coming out of nowhere with a media blitz, or to see the support that Bernie Sanders has?
To me, it's been fascinating to watch. I firmly believe that they're probably going to go all the way to Milwaukee before they have a nominee. But they all have the same thing in common. They're all coalescing around a bigger government, higher tax, higher regulation. Many of them have openly said that we're spending too much money on the military. We need to spend it somewhere else. So the candidate who wins the nomination, I have people ask me, you know, which one would I prefer over the other? I said it really doesn't make much difference now because they're all racing to the far left with the liberal progressive agenda that I don't think people in North Carolina and the battleground states are going to accept.
I heard that just a couple of days ago, someone used this line that if it were to be a Trump-Bloomberg race, it would be the battle of the 401ks. Billionaire versus billionaire. They live a quarter of a mile apart in Manhattan, but people are concerned about the future of what they have to live on, what they've worked to earn.
Oh, I agree, which is exactly why I think that that coin toss goes to President Trump. President Trump, if you look at your 401k now versus 4 years ago, there's no doubt that you feel more financially secure. If you're talking about your child about to go off to college, you're more confident about them being able to get a job when they get out of university or community college. I think that Bloomberg, look, he's buying his name ID. He hasn't really gotten out there on many issues. Tonight we may see some of that in the debate, but I believe he's just another just a slightly different shade of virtually every liberal agenda that they're trying to put forth to get the Democratic nomination. And I think that that's not going to be very well received in North Carolina in November.
Talk to me about what you hear from young people. There are a lot. I mean, we see this election after election. Young people sometimes get fired up. They have oftentimes more time to be fired up. What are you hearing from younger voters?
Well, you know, I hear a range of things. I actually love meetings, you know, smaller meetings where I can have a real discussion with young people. I meet with a lot of them in my office and as I'm traveling across the state. And I think they're really, many of them are smart enough to know that the promises that some people are making, they probably can't keep. Now, some actually believe that now is the time. I saw some interviews up in New Hampshire among some young people that said they believe now is the time for the United States to become a socialist or socialist democracy. I think we need to continue to explain the long-term consequences for that. Look, if we take away, to give all that we want to give, all that we take away is their freedom and their opportunity, their ability to realize the kinds of dreams that you and I realized. And when you communicate it in that way, and it's not like, I remember when my daughter was 14 years old, mother of my beautiful grandbaby, she wanted some money. She wanted me to give her some money. She was probably about 12 years old. And she said, Dad, I want money. I can't even remember what she wanted it for. I said, well, sweetie, I don't have any money. She says, well, we don't have enough money to do that. She said, well, we just need to go to the bank. Well, the same thing is true here. We just need to go to the bank, but there's no money in the bank to pay for what they're promising. I think that they're empty promises. They will hurt employment. They will destroy our economy. They will make us less competitive in a time where we have the opportunity to have the strongest economic might that this nation has ever enjoyed. That's very, very important for this generation coming up and the generations behind them, and I'm fighting for that.